The camera operator. Just give a thumbs up or something. Awesome.
I can't.
The results are in. I'm afraid it's cancer. Less than 1% of the world's population, or less than 1/2 of the world's population in 2018 was either diagnosed or they already had this condition. Less than 1/2 of the world's population doesn't really seem too bad, too terrible, correct? But what if I put a more realistic number? The World Cancer Research Fund has estimated that in 2018 there were about 18 million cases of cancer of one type or another. A pretty large number. So it may seem too good to be true, and at the same time long overdue. But what if I told you that we were this close to the brink of actually being able to completely cure cancer? I don't mean just to send somebody into remission for cancer. I mean to be able to completely destroy it from their body. And let's say hypothetically we could even cure 1/3 of those cases, not even the entire population of those that are currently living with this. 1/3 realistically of this number would be about 6 million, which is then about the equivalent of the population of New York City, which is, when you think about how many people are in New York City and how many people are in every single one of those, like the streets or those buildings, those cars, that's a lot more of a solid, visualized number that you can focus on. So in this speech, I'd like to discuss some of the more common types of cancers, the way that this supposed cure would work, and as well as the potential availability for this. There are over 200 known or identified types of cancers, but for classification, study, and treatment, they are grouped into 6 main classes or types. And I'm sure that we've all heard of at least 2 of these, whether through some sort of commercial or if it rings a bell from our high school biology classes. Carcinoma, a sarcoma, a lymphoma, a leukemia, a germ cell tumor, and a blastoma. I'm sure that we've all heard at least one of these. Leukemia is actually a specific type of cancer, so even though it is technically one of the over 200 types of perceived cancers, it's such a unique form that it actually is grouped into its own specific class. Carcinoma, as you may have guessed, shares a root word with a carcinogen. It's generally caused by smoking or diesel fumes. Blastoma is generally a more serious, well, not to say a more serious, they're all very serious, but a blastoma is one that's just sheer destruction of the cells instead of a spread of the actual cancerous infection. Healthline 2019 has listed some of the most common forms of cancers that were identified in the U.S. as of 2018. I'd like to present some of these numbers and statistics for you. And these are all second only to skin cancer, because skin cancer is a specific situation in the sense that it's cancerous, but it's only so many of the cases are very treatable, or they're only semi-cancerous, for lack of a better phrase. So behind skin cancer, the most common kind is breast cancer, which is kind of ironic at this time, considering we are in the month of October. Annually, it'll claim about 42,000 lives a year. And based on a 5-year survival rate, it will have about a 90% survival rate, which is a pretty good statistic. Mm-hmm. Second behind that is it's going to be lung cancer. This is generally one of the more carcinoma-based classes, and this does take into account both a naturally occurring case in addition to tobacco products or those that are caused by like fumes, whether it's a chemical or from like a diesel engine, which actually diesel fumes are a very strong factor to the cause of this particular kind of cancer. Generally, those with this will only have a 23% survival rate over 5 years, meaning 3 out of 4 people with lung cancer will fall as a fatal victim to it. Colon rectal cancer, on average, does claim about 51,000 lives a year and has about a 64% survival rate. Leukemia. I'm sure that we've all heard this one, especially through St. Jude's Children's Research, and I'm sure that we've all seen the public service announcements for it. This claims 22,840 lives a year and has only about a 61.4% survival rate over 5 years. Pancreatic cancer has about, or will claim about 45,750 lives a year and only has a 9% survival rate, which is a very low, terribly low rate for that. All these survival rates were actually based on a study conducted between 2008 and 2014, which means that these rates right here still don't take in to account those who have redeveloped the cancer, or those who have since fallen victim to the disease, which is an even sadder fact for these. But and now that since we know so many of these, let's discuss the main reason why I would like to present this. Not finalized, it's still only proposed, and it's still being worked on. The cure. This has been something that's been thought of, been talked about for a very long time, and it's long overdue. There are several different cures that are in the works, but there is one that is captured my interest above several others. Mutato is code for a multi-target toxin. This will actually use, this is actually based on a functional phage display, which is something that's already currently used, so it's not particularly new. ABC News, 2019, has reported that this particular gene therapy is actually based on the creation of therapeutic peptides, which are actually a much easier, much more cost-effective creation. It's basically a man-made drug, except it's the way that it's produced is it can be produced in larger quantities for a fraction of the cost, basically. The way that these peptides would work is that they would actually attack the cancer receptors, which is generally how a lot of remission-based therapy goes. But these would actually be linked with a protein complex that would then allow them to actually target 3 receptors at once, which considering the way that cancer works is actually very astounding, because as we can see, that would mean that essentially this therapy would actually be able to attack the cancer cells based on the receptors faster than the cells would be able to spread. And now, therapeutic peptides, protein chains, this does sound complex, painful. A lot of people are probably wondering just how long would this take for a cure? Current estimations, based on current lab tests, show that it would probably only last a duration of just a few weeks, a few months at the most, and it would have minimal side effects. There would still be some side effects, but as with all things, it's still a better alternative to than to living with this. And these would actually do what so many drugs nowadays, especially especially things bought through the pharmacy or with a prescription. This will actually go so much more and one step further than what they can do, in the sense that so many of these drugs and these therapies will only send the patient into remission, or they'll only treat the symptoms. This is actually something that is trying to actually destroy the cancer cells completely from the body. Knowing this, one of the largest questions that that's the general public would have is when. Optimistic availability by the developer of this, as reported by so it's reported by the Moffitt Cancer Center 2019, is that the developer would like to have this experimental drug optimistically within a year. However, this may be overly optimistic in the fact that this still has not gone to human trials, which more than likely human trials are what would be conducting within a year. Some of the clinical trials that they would like to start with are those patients who are currently suffering from or who are currently suffering from cancers that involve the lung, colon, of the head, and the neck. Even if this is successful, based on this number right here, it can still take up to 12 years for an FDA approval, which is a very long time. A lot of these patients may not live for those 12 years. Now, this is only an average. This is not a numerical guarantee, in the sense that some things may take 5, 4, 3 years, some may take even more. And even then, only about 1 of 5,000 are actually approved for use by the general public. Even if this were to be successful, it wouldn't be a cure-all. This would not be the miracle drug that would cure all cancer, something to wash everything away. This is still a target-based treatment, and there are simply too many cancers in the world, and some that are too aggressive that can realistically be treated by some of the most advanced things that we already have. Realistically though, even if human trials were to begin within 1 year, and let's say that it does take 12 years for this to become FDA approved and to be able to be used on these unfortunate patients, we may not know how long it will take, but I will say that now, more than ever, it does seem like we will probably live to see a cure for so many of these cancers within our lifetime, and we hope as well within a lifetime for some of these patients. It may be prolonged work, it may be very painstaking, but now more than ever, it's very promising.